These are just a few tips for encouraging wildlife in your garden. The first thing is, don't go mad with the chemicals, particularly don't go mad with herbicides. Let daisies grow and dandelions grow. Dandelions and daisies are really important plants. They support huge amounts of wildlife. Now, no chemicals are used in this garden, no herbicides are used, and that's why there's a good bit of wildlife. When insects eat the daisies, they don't also get poison in them. If you put down herbicides, even if they're not intended for a certain plant, they will get into the plant and they will end up in the insects, and then they'll end up in the birds. Some birds will directly get them by eating dandelions or other plants. They eat the seeds of them and they might get the herbicides into them that way, and that can have effects that you don't even know about. And these are just ordinary things you'd buy in your garden centre, but they're herbicides nonetheless. Also, mowing. Of course you need to mow a lawn in the springtime, but leave a few areas, or just mow in sections. This one's mown in sections. So there's an area here which is left a bit wild. There's an area here where it's mown. Gradually, as spring goes on, there's more trees blooming and the canopies get thicker. You can mow the lawn more regularly, especially after the big dandelion bloom, because the dandelion bloom is really important for lots of insects. So you don't want to destroy all the dandelions. Even if you don't like the look of them, they're extremely important plants. If you have the space, you can include a pond. And a pond doesn't have to be that fancy, it just has to be an area of water. If you do, in this case, an old jacuzzi, but if you do put a pond in, put in something that creatures can climb out. Creatures can drown. I've seen hedgehogs unfortunately drowned in ponds they couldn't get out of. If you want creatures to be able to get in, little raised area so they can actually climb up and get in and get out often. But this here is a sort of it's like a climbing frame, so anything that gets in can actually walk out. The bottom of it is weighed down with a rock, and the frogs, as you know, got in, because if you've seen the other videos, there's loads of tadpoles. Put in aerating plants. Some of them are a little problematic because they can spread and they can become pests. One of them, this one, you really have to control it, but it does aerate the pond, and that's parrot's feather. So parrot's feather can become a pest in watercourses. But you don't have to have something this big, it can be something tiny. Oh, okay. A bird bath is a really brilliant thing to have in your garden because birds are attracted to them. You need to make sure to empty out the water though occasionally. This one looks fancy, but it wasn't actually all that expensive. You can get them in garden centres, and often there's a sale and you can get them quite cheap. But any amount of water, it's basically like a huge bowl, and it looks good, it's on a pedestal. But other than that, the birds only care about the water and that they can actually wash in it, and they will wash in it. They love to actually bathe in these things. And you'll attract a lot of birds to your garden once they know there's water available. I will usually empty it out once a day and then fill it up again, and that's better. It promotes health for the birds as well, because you don't know where some of them are coming from. They may have occasionally little diseases that can affect other birds. And also the water gets a bit say rancid after a while, especially on sunny days. But it's been raining all night, so it's very fresh. I bought this in a garden centre. It cost about €5. It's plastic. It's basically you put a huge pot into it normally, but it has no holes in it. It's absolutely brilliant. Holds water. You have an instantaneous pond here, prefabricated and UV proof, so it won't disintegrate when sunlight gets on it. And look how big it is compared to the bird bath. And this could be a brilliant bird bath too, but it's huge. So you can actually make a lovely little pond in this. And you can do all the things you can do with a regular pond. You can get the same plants. You'll even get frogs spawning in this. So that's a really good option. I intend to do the same with this one. I discovered that birds, there's a little container left out and water got into it, and the birds actually prefer the container to this bird bath. And it was just left at the foot of a tree. And a lot of birds, the same with feeders, they prefer if the feeders are closer to a tree, so they can actually hop in out of the bushes. So if you actually get one of these, this is a brilliant pond or bird bath or pond and bird bath, because birds will happily swim about in the pond as well to clean themselves. You don't need to have a huge garden to have a garden. And this is a tub, and it's full of wild plants, including a dandelion. And this is a buddleia bush, which is the butterfly bush, and they, even when they're small, they flower. And this is a bit scraggly and wild, but you could do this on your balcony, or even if you just have a window box, you can actually sow wildflower seeds, and you'll get insects coming to them, and you'll get bees coming to them. And you'll have all sorts of creatures, butterflies as well. Now it's a bit early in the year, but you get the idea. You can actually have a wildlife garden anywhere, and it can be any size. In supermarkets you can get lots of different boxes of seeds, wildflowers and climbers. These are climbers. These are very good for window boxes because you can increase the size of a garden in a small area by just putting in, you know, like a little poles for them to climb on. And the flowers are incredible, especially nasturtiums and things like that. And many of them will be wildflowers. Some will be wild from mainland Europe, but at the end of the day, this is a garden. It's not wild exactly, it's semi-wild. So a really good thing to do is just get a couple of boxes of these seeds. One will actually, this box will probably do 4 or 5, maybe more, window boxes, decent sized window boxes. So if you wanted to do any balcony gardening, these are brilliant. And some of the plants are even edible, such as nasturtiums, which are eaten in salads. So, but of course you don't want to take any chances. Make sure you know what you're eating. But you'll attract all sorts of things. Butterflies love nasturtiums. Large whites lay their eggs on nasturtiums, and so you'll know you've got nasturtiums when the caterpillars hatch out and start eating the leaves. But even a small garden, just a window box, and you can have loads of wildlife coming into your house, or coming into your garden basically. There's no reason, even if you have a large garden, you should do window boxes as well. But do what you can do, and you'll encourage wildlife. And remember, once you have the flowers, you'll have the insects, you'll have the birds, and you might have something else interesting as well. And do a little bit of experimenting.